Okay, number one, our English teachers already said that to reinstate the book at this point was not productive in their mind. So they are basically telling us, let's not worry about it for this semester. That's what I heard anyway. Because it would cause more disruption at this point, okay? Now, earlier in the meeting, we talked about putting in place a policy or exploring the possibility of a policy that will handle these type of situations in the future. I, for one, am not going to tell the English department what to do next semester, okay? But hopefully by then the board will have some kind of policy in place so that if we have community members who are not happy with the choice of curriculum, there is a process, there will be hopefully a committee in place that can effectively deal with that issue. That is my opinion.
I agree 100%. I think we should explore this, the policy that Meridian has sent to us, see how that will fit in our district, and how we maybe can tailor it to our district, or maybe it doesn't need to be tailored, I don't know. But I agree with Nancy. I took the comment from the English department exactly the same way, that the book is, reinstating the book tonight wouldn't do anybody any good. So personally, I'd rather focus on the policy rather than the book. I think the policy is the issue more so than the book is. So I'd like to focus on that.
I have to disagree. I think that reinstating the book would definitely make a difference for our teachers and for the community. It's obvious that policy was violated, a policy that we all agree to uphold. I believe what she meant to state, and what my question was, is would it be more disruptive to allow the book back into the children's hands this year as sophomores versus having the book be allowed back into the classroom next year? She said next year. That doesn't mean we don't make a decision on what's in front of us right now. We have a lot of people that are, have spent their time here tonight, have expressed their concerns, valid concerns that we have not gone with policy. And whether we reinstate it as a required reading pending a review of a new board that is going to look at materials, I would be fine with that as well, given the fact that we will have time to do that before next year. But to just brush over this and move on, I think would be a disservice to our community members.
I also agree with Nancy about, I was kind of on the fence earlier about this review committee, and I do think I think I'm sold on it now. I think we do have to have something like that out there. I've had my kids have gone through the system. Well, the last one's going to graduate, and they've got an excellent education in Teton County. That we have quality folks in our district. I don't doubt that one bit. Everyone in this school district, whether it be a teacher, a custodian, a cook, or whomever, they have the best interest in our children, and I don't doubt that at all, including our superintendent. Where we go from here, I guess, is I don't know. We're going to move forward. We're going to sound like we're going to look at a policy of some sort of policy review committee out there on materials. Is that what you're talking about? And I agree with that. I do agree with Bonnie to a certain degree too. I think that if this book, it needs to be in our school district. And I think the issue comes down to required reading versus optional reading. That's, I think, where the rub is with a lot of folks, but that's just my take. You done thinking? Mr. Woolstenhulme, we're going to turn some time over to you then.
It's very important to build trust in our community and in our school district. And I take responsibility for times this year when either my actions or decisions, I think, have broken down that trust. And even though I believe I've acted according to my experience and my beliefs, I still have to recognize how important that trust factor is in our community. And you build that with open communication, both directions, with any person that you're dealing with on any issue. I recognize that I acted hastily on this, and I see the concern and the issue that the teachers have in, this is me, this isn't Mr. Mello or the English department or the staff of the high school, this is me, and I should have pulled out policy 4120, which is the uniform grievance procedure. Even though we're talking about curricular review committees and how to go through that process and following a concern process over specific curricular materials, to me, in general, policy 4120 covers any grievance brought by anybody. And that should be what guides our district. It should guide my decision-making and actions. And even though in this policy, it talks about addressing complaints promptly, the next two words say, and equitably. And I believe my response was to students and parents that had strong concerns over this book, and yet I recognize a bigger majority of students and parents did not have any objection to this book and this information and this material. I'm not on solid ground if I can't defend to the board and to the public in an open meeting and look everybody right in the eye and say, I'm doing everything I can to follow policy, even with all the interpretations that happen anytime you give anybody policy or literature to read. That being said, I would recommend that we do allow the English department to use this book. We can go through this grievance policy with those people that have these concerns. And reflecting on this in the last 5 weeks, when I met with parents who had concerns, parents who had met with the teachers and the staff and felt like their concerns hadn't been addressed at that level, if anybody should be following and using these policies as closely as possible, that is my responsibility to do. So my recommendation, if the board allows the English department to use this book, and granted, we're close to the Christmas break, and then we're close to the second semester, and I don't know how and when that would work. If it works for next semester or not, I don't want to get into their level of planning and organization. That allows me and administration to meet with people and say, okay, let's follow this policy specifically. And while we are working through those procedures spelled out in this policy, then the board can continue the work about, are we going to have a curriculum review adoption committee? How are we going to address concerns specifically on curriculum? But this is the guide that I recognize, I admit, and I apologize, I should have been following very specifically. The teachers were working through it, Mr. Mello was working through it, and I'm the one that failed and did not follow this. even though I was working to address a concern and a disruption and do so promptly, it impacted a greater number of students than I recognized when I was making the decision at that time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I wish Susan Kent was here. I don't think she's here, but did she not say that she was not interested in using that book for the remainder of this year? Or am I wrong?
I thought you said this semester, but again, this is semantics, and I think, the decision is, as far as the board goes, we're not telling the English department necessarily what to do. It's whether, are we going to support, their decision or not.
So what do you, oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to say that I think that this decision that Monty just made was made at the correct level. That's why I would like to focus on the policy here rather than the book. Monty can make the decision about the book. And I commend him for the decision he just made.
I agree with you. We gotta stick with policy, and I also agree that policy wasn't followed on all parties, I think, with this. And, okay, so what's your proposal then? Or we're gonna look at this next semester, is that what you're thinking?
How many proposals and policies have we talked about? It's starting to blur. Okay, there's a few people that came here, while everyone else wants to go home. If the board is not making a decision about policy and procedure, then I am informing the board of my decision to meet with the English department. Oh, I hope we have school tomorrow. As appropriately as scheduled with Mr. Mello and the English department, to convey again my apology, my commitment to follow this policy, to communicate with parents who had concerns about this book and say, this is the guide we're going to follow to address your concerns at this time, while the board works on the recommendation from the Meridian School District on curriculum, adoption reviews, removal of materials, however we work through that process. But I will meet with the English department as soon as I can meet with them and say, where many students and many parents were not opposed to this book and this information, the book should be used in the class as long as we are following this grievance procedure with those students and parents that do object to the book, and how we are respectfully addressing those concerns.
That's the work of administration, and I agree with Dylan, we need to stay out of that as a board. We need to concentrate on policy, and so we'll let you proceed forward however you think you need to proceed forward following our school district policy. And I think,
Thank you.
I think that says it in a nutshell, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does, and especially since if we're going to be following the policy to the letter of the word, it doesn't come to this board until we receive a written request from Monty that we decide that we make that decision. And to my knowledge, we have not received any written request about this book.
Correct. Okay, let's move on. Other board members, Bonnie, do you want to say anything else? You're good? Okay. Nancy. All right, school reports, and it's 11:15.